Hi, I'm Taylor Ray, and I'm a YouTuber and a drifter. I was a drifter first, though. I was a drifter first. So I got into drifting in kind of an odd way. I had never really heard of it. I met a guy through 944s. I had a 944 at the time, and we became friends, and I ended up trading that car for a 240, which I then traded for a 944 Turbo. And my friend was trying to buy it. He was big into them, and he told me he would not buy it, let me trade for it, if I tried to drift it, because it came with a factory LSD, which was kind of rare in those cars. So he basically peer pressured me into doing it. I started drifting in 2010 and been doing it ever since. So my ultimate drift chassis would probably be a Corvette. From just everything I've seen, looking at different chassis, driving different chassis, watching how they perform, I think the Vet is kind of the best car for me. You know, I started with my LS Miata in competition, and short wheelbase, double A-arm suspension. The Vet is obviously a bigger, longer car, but it's double A-arm suspension. I like the design of them. I like the packaging. I think they look good. So I really think that would be it. Maybe there's some exotic car that would be better, but it's above my pay grade. So my biggest influence getting into drifting would have been my buddy Elliot with the 944s. You know, he kind of took me under his wing. He took me to, Mexico street spots and rode in the car with me and taught me how to drift. I went to my first events and he told me the do's and the don'ts. He helped me skip a lot of those steps that everyone makes and the mistakes, because he was already past that. And, he was definitely like my mentor getting into all of it. Handbrake. So handbrake is so much more consistent than flicking in. I like to do a flick to a handbrake sometimes. I like to flick in, but I pretty much always am gonna handbrake enter because it's consistent. It's gonna work every time. There's a little more grip and you try to flick it or clutch kick, it might grip up and send you an extra 20 feet deeper. The handbrake works the same every time, and it gives you that second to kind of figure out, am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Am I at the right angle? Am I in the right spot? I know it's lame, but handbrakes are there for a reason. They're a very useful tool. So the best event would definitely be, that's a tough one. I would say probably Ebisu, Matsuri. It's just an insane event. There's multiple tracks spread out across Ebisu. Toge course is definitely the coolest one for me because it's the most different to anything else I've driven. It's super narrow. It feels like a back road in Japan that you're allowed to drift. And the Matsuri event is just chaos drifting overnight if you want to. People camped out in tents in the little buildings next to the track and seeing all the different cars. That's probably the best one, but obviously that's international. Stateside, probably a Grid Life. Grid Life's definitely always a really good event. Any one of them I've been to has been really fun, a good mix of a lot of things. So getting into YouTube was an odd thing for me because I didn't even know what YouTube was at the time. I had never heard of subscribers or YouTube channels. I thought it was just for like fail videos and compilations. And then I met Adam LZ working at BC doing coilovers on his car. We became buddies because I used to ride BMX and he wanted to get into drifting and I was drifting at the time, and I kind of helped him figure out what to do and how to get into drifting. And then we started hanging out more, and one day he just mentioned that I should start a YouTube channel, and he offered to help me get going and kind of get my channel off the ground. And it's not something I'd ever thought about, but it was a good opportunity to try it, and here we are. Drift spec, always. I want as much shock travel as possible so I can jump speed bumps and rumble strips and curbs and not have to worry about ever bottoming the shock out. So for me, it's people that try to advance too quickly. There's nothing wrong with wanting to learn really quickly, but people just have this obsession with getting to A class, getting to the tandem class, getting into tandem before they can ever link the track consistently. If you can't link the track every single lap of an event without spinning out, obviously everyone makes mistakes, but if you're not able to link the track 95% of the time without spinning out, there's no reason to be tandeming. You still have stuff to work on solo. People get so obsessed with the number and the status of being a tandem driver that they skip a lot of the fundamental steps and they end up chasing their tail trying to become better drivers in a much more complicated scenario. Figure out your solo runs, don't rush to get to tandem. I think best in the world is James Dean. I think it's almost unquestioned that James Dean is the best driver. I mean, he's so adaptable. He drives a bunch of different cars, and he's just so consistently good. You know, his keeping it conservative and doing a run he knows he can put down without wrecking is like most of the other guys, like giving it everything she's got, hoping you don't wreck. And I think that's what separates him. He's killer. Okay, so for new people getting into drifting, don't try to go crazy and build a car and have a swapped car and a bunch of power. You don't need any of that. Get yourself a simple seat time car. A stock Z, Corvette, they're a little more expensive, but it's a good baseline, a C5. It's so much better to have a car that's got a stock drivetrain in it and is simple because it'll get you the most amount of laps. The more power you have, the faster you wear tires, the more stuff breaks, the harder everything is. And it's just a little bit cooler. It's not worth it. Get a seat time car and just go drive. Get seat time. Seat time is way better than any mod you could ever do to your car. Sony Action Cam all day long. No offense to GoPros, but I've never had good luck with GoPros. They randomly lose footage. You think they're recording, they're not recording, they crash, they overheat. The Sonys I have are like 6 years old, same ones. You can plug a mic directly into them if you want to. The batteries last like 5 times longer. The footage probably isn't as primo as like the newest GoPro, but they're way more reliable. Oh, live for speed all day. I know everyone loves Assetto, and Assetto's way prettier, and it's way cooler. You can drive all these cool cars. I can drive my own car in Assetto on the tracks I've driven, and I still prefer live for speed because Assetto, when you're tandeming, but like at a distance, it's all right. It's kind of accurate. But when you get to that, trying to close that last 5 feet, which is the hardest part of tandem drifting, is that last 5 feet, it's not realistic at all. Whereas live for speed is so realistic in that sense of that just dialing in, getting that last bit of proximity, that playing live for speed is what made me the driver I am today, 100%. I put a ton of hours into live for speed, and I could never get with Assetto. I tried every different car pack. They're all gonna be the greatest, and it just never feels right.